Hello there, and a very warm welcome to the show. Thank you so much for tuning in and for watching Smart 24 TV. We drive your business. My name is Anthony, and I'm your host. This is another edition of the #1 business and investment show in East Africa. Now, remember, the show is proudly brought to you by Altex East Africa. And with Altex, we say no hustle, and yet you have more money. What you need to do is to grab your phone and dial *292# to experience the magic at Altex East Africa. They give you access to treasury bonds in East Africa, in Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. With a click of a button, you can transact money from your mobile wallet onto the Altex platform and get to experience the journey of investment with Altex East Africa. We are regulated by the Capital Markets Authority of Uganda and are currently operating in 3 countries, Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. Our markets open at 8:15 and close at 3 p.m. Altex East Africa, doing something new. Of course, a very warm welcome once again, and thank you so much for tuning in. Today is definitely the second day, and we are looking at Monday trading and seeing how much the stock markets played out. Remember, we are on the verge. The banking sector and several other sectors are being affected by the global crisis that's currently stemming from the US collapse of most of the banking institutions. Over 190 banks have collapsed so far in the United States, and these include Silicon Valley Bank and the prestigious Credit Suisse, which are actually so far have filed for bankruptcy. But let's have a look at what the market's outlook here in Uganda is looking like past, of course, what we are seeing on the international scene. Now, according to data from the Uganda Securities Exchange, on Monday, the all-share index, which is a benchmark index performance, rather the benchmark tracker of performance on the exchange, lost at least 28.74 points. As per the trading day, this shows a 2.5% decline in the all-share index. At the moment, we are also looking at least 1,122 points on this particular index, generally showing a decline in the aggregate performance of all the listings. However, specifically speaking about Monday, we had at least 3 equities participating in trading, and the day ended with just a single gainer, and this was MTN Uganda. MTN gained at least 1.34% in share price at the close of the day. And on the losing side, we had Equity Group Holdings coming at the bottom with a depreciation of at least 5.31% at a 1,156 Ugandan shillings closing price. And when you look at Nation Media Group, it lost at least 4.56%, and East African Breweries at least 1.92%, whereas Centum at least lost 0.4%. These were some of the biggest players for the day. But on the participants list, we had MTN coming as one of the biggest movers. However, he wasn't the biggest mover. Stanbic Bank Uganda traded at least a record 52,875 shares on the Uganda Securities Exchange. It was followed by Wumeme. Actually, Wumeme came on top, and then Stanbic in the second place with a record volume of 103,215 shares that were recorded on Monday. MTN just recorded at least 5,846 shares on Monday. Now, interestingly, MTN stock has been rising consequent of the upbeat from the investors. And remember last week, we talked about the 20% increase in profit before tax, which was registered by the company. And I remember telling you clearly that much as MTN was going down last week, it's going to rise again. And this is exactly what we are seeing on the markets today. Now, on Monday, we had at least a 1.34% value added to every shareholder on MTN as we wound up the trading of the first weekday of trade. Now, MTN maintains a market capitalization of 3.92 trillion Ugandan shillings on the market, with a total representation of at least 19.9% of the entire equities market on the Uganda Securities Exchange. A closing price of 175.0 Ugandan shillings was actually registered after a gain of 2.31 Ugandan shillings. Now, when you look at these stock performance, the volumes of 5,846 shares actually came from a trade that cost the company at least 1.02 million Ugandan shillings. At the moment, the company enjoys a 2.87. Actually, it doesn't enjoy. It's experiencing a 2.78% loss on their year-to-date performance, beginning the year with at least 170. When you look at how they began, they are 180.0 shillings, and at the current pricing of 175, their year-to-date loss has actually gone down slightly, and now they are ranked the 8th in terms of year-to-date on the Uganda Stock Exchange. MTN Uganda is currently the second most traded on stock on the exchange in the past 3 months as well. Within this period, we are talking a record volume of 20.5 million shares that has so far been transacted. And at MTN, the average volumes of trading in this period have been at least 326,127 shares per trading session. That's MTN Uganda stock there for you. Top gainer yesterday, top mover. Very good stuff from MTN, and definitely restoring the confidence of investors. Will this be sustained throughout today? We watch the space. Markets are open right now. They opened at 9 a.m. and they will be closing at 1 p.m. And we'll have a look at the data there later on as we proceed. Now, away from MTN Uganda, Stanbic Bank Uganda also returned to activity after a while of not being active. And when I say while, I mean a very short while, about 3 or 4, 5 days. And returned with a volume of at least 52,000 shares on the market. Now, the day's closure was at a price of 21.0 Ugandan shillings on the most traded on stock on the Uganda Securities Exchange. Market capitalization currently stands at 1.07 trillion Ugandan shillings, and this represents at least 5.45% of the entire Uganda Securities Exchange equity market. Now, with Stanbic Bank Uganda, remember, this is a dedicated dividend issuer because, of course, it's a profitable company and has been quite an investor's choice for the last couple of years. And this time round still maintains the top activity on the Uganda Stock Exchange. Now, looking at year-to-date 1 week performance and the 3 months performance, there seems to have been a little bit of laxity as the company is currently stuck at 21 shillings. Seems the investors are much more comfortable there. But at least with the trading currently, we can expect much more from Stanbic Bank. And especially around this season when we expect the financial year to be closing and the books to be audited and reports to be brought on table. What will Stanbic Bank Uganda have for us this time round? I'm pretty sure, depending on what I've seen Stanbic do, they have been involved in several new products, creating new products. They've been involved in getting to increase financial inclusion by getting to extend their services to several vulnerable people, including women who have actually been the focus of the company recently as it engages people in financial inclusion. Now, in the last 3 months on the exchange, Stanbic Bank stock has had at least 3.76 billion Ugandan shillings transacted, and at least 165 million shares traded on the exchange. Now, that's almost triple what the next biggest trader on the exchange has to offer. So it's a stock that you are assured of activity, you are assured of selling out. If you want to sell, you will definitely find the buyers, and it's quite affordable. That's the beauty of Stanbic Bank Uganda stock. Leaving matters of Stanbic Bank Uganda stock aside, Umeme also participated in the trade and came out with the biggest volume for the day. Now, Umeme is still currently the supplier and distributor of electricity in Uganda, and Umeme enjoys a market capitalization of at least 487 billion Ugandan shillings on the Uganda Securities Exchange, currently representing at least a 2.47% of the entire Uganda Securities Exchange equity market. Now, at the moment, Umeme is on the verge of leaving Uganda and, of course, delisting from the Uganda Stock Exchange. Of course, after last year, it issued a public notice on the 8th of December that they will be closing their business in 2025. And that, of course, looks at proceedings from procedure from the Uganda Securities Exchange listing rules on how to delist. But the stock price of the company skyrocketed since then to from at least 200 shillings to an average of 300 shillings currently. That's being traded on the Uganda Stock Exchange at the moment. Now, on the volumes that were traded yesterday, we had at least 103,215 shares traded at a total value of 31 million shillings as turnover. The company's year-to-date performance is way up there at 9.09%. Their 3 months performance currently stands at 42.9%, and they enjoy the third position as far as trading volumes are concerned in the last 3 months. At least 18 million shares have so far been registered at Umeme Limited, and that's what we're currently counting as the 5.05 billion Ugandan shillings, making Umeme the company with the biggest turnover on the Uganda Securities Exchange. Away from Umeme, Cipla Quality Chemical Industries has some news coming up that you might be interested in. Yes, absolutely. Cipla will be selling 51.08% of its stake to a company known as Capital Works, Africa Capital Works SSA, which is a subsidiary of Capital Works Africa. Now, according to what the company issued as a notice through the Uganda Securities Exchange, Cipla, which is an Indian pharmaceutical company, is expected to wholly exit Cipla Quality Chemical Industries, which is listed on the Uganda Securities Exchange, in a transaction that is expected to cost at least between 25 million US dollars, that is at least 93.3 billion Ugandan shillings, and at least about 30 billion United States dollars, which is about 112 billion Ugandan shillings. Now, in a disclosure notice to shareholders that was filed through Bombay Stock Exchange, the Luxembourg Stock Exchange, and the National Stock Exchange of India, it indicated that on Monday 14th March, they entered into an agreement with Africa Capital Works SSA, which is in which it would dispose of its entire stake in Cipla. That's Cipla Quality Chemicals, and this was held through the Cipla EU and Meditab Holdings. The company and its wholly owned subsidiaries, Cipla EU, UK, and Meditab Holdings, Mauritius, have entered into a share purchase agreement. And this is with Africa Capital Works SSA on the 14th of March for the sale of at least 51.18% stake of Cipla Quality Chemical Industries Uganda. Now, subsequent to the sale, the Cipla Quality Chemical Industries will cease to be a subsidiary of Cipla India. That is according to the notice that was issued by Cipla QCIL. The proposed sale, which the disclosure notice details indicates will cost at least 25 million US dollars, and consideration to be received by Cipla EU and Meditab shall be in a range between 25 million US dollars to at least 30 million US dollars. Now, recently there was an issuance of the notice through the Uganda Securities Exchange and a publishing of this notice in newspapers. where Cipla Quality Chemical Industries are transaction, and that the Africa Capital Works SSA company had actually applied to the Capital Markets Authority, the CMA, to approve their transaction that they were actually trying to bring to the table. And pending this approval, the company will be able to fully transact 51.08% of its stake in Cipla Quality Chemical Industries to African Capital SSA. According to Mr. Ajay Paul, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Cipla Quality Chemical Industries, he said that irrespective of the direction which this transaction takes, there would be close to no changes, given that Cipla is a profitable business with an expanding market boosted by the manufacture of drugs. Now, that's very important from the CEO there. There's been a lot of questions on what this is going to do and what this means for the company. It doesn't mean Cipla is closing down. No, the CEO is saying there'll be close to nothing that will change, because Cipla is a renowned drug manufacturer for years. And so this definitely might not mean anything to how Cipla is going to be running its business. Now, the disclosure notice also indicated that as of 31st March 2021, Cipla Quality Chemical Industries' total net worth was at least $44.08 million US. This is approximately about 164.6 billion Ugandan shillings, contributing at least 1.62% to Cipla Industries Limited consolidated net worth. And when you look at the income generated, last year Cipla was able to make their first profit since listing in 2018, and they made at least they had a revenue of at least 75.21 million US dollars. That's approximately 280.9 billion Ugandan shillings in revenue, contributing at least 2.57% of Cipla Limited's consolidated revenue. Now, the transaction will see Capital Works SSA, South African-based equity fund, become Cipla Quality Chemical Industries' largest holder from at least 11.51% stake and to at least 62.91% respectively at the moment. And that is, of course, what is coming out of Cipla Quality Chemical Industries. What does this mean for you as a shareholder? Definitely no need to panic, no need to rush to sell or to buy, but to just take a few systematic steps. You can have more shares at Cipla. Cipla sells their shares at least at 60 shillings at the moment. So you can be able to still purchase some bit of more shares there at Cipla Quality Chemical Industries. Now, on the Nairobi Stock Exchange, we had still some bit of trading and improvement. The very first day we've seen an improvement on the exchange since the beginning of this week. Now, in aggregate, at least 43 NSE listings participated in the trade, which saw Safaricom, yes, you heard me right, Safaricom led the gainers this time round with a total of 9.79%. We had almost lost hope in Safaricom. Yes, it's back, and closing at 17.95 Kenyan shillings per share. Safaricom was the biggest gainer for the day on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. As if that wasn't enough, Safaricom also traded the biggest volume of 15.6 million shares on the market. Local publishers gained at least 9.65%, Sassini Tea and Coffee at least 7.57%, and Home Africa at least 6.9%. At the losing side, we had BOC Kenya, or the Commercial Bank of Kenya, come out with the biggest depreciation. At least 9.09% was shed off the counter, and the Nairobi Business Ventures shed off at least 6.23%, whereas Williamson Tea Kenya at least had 6.83% shed off. At the moment, also Equity Bank Limited and KCB Group continue to rally the market on the Nairobi Securities Exchange with a volume of 1.95 million and 2.64 million shares traded respectively. In as far as the all-share index is concerned, for the first time there was a soaring of 3.62 points. In a very long time, the index has been on the losing side in the red figures but not Monday trades for you there. Closing at 107.03 points. The company's weekly loss was down to 6.95% from over 9% on Friday, and the 4-week loss of at least 15.8%, and as well an overall year-to-date loss that contracted to 16.04%. And that's the trading, my friend, from the Nairobi markets. The Nairobi markets, however, saw a decline in the volume by 73% and 65% in turnover. However, good news is Safaricom probably returned to its feet, and we hope this will be maintained for a better performance, a future performance for the stock on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Now, getting to cross over to the United States, where a lot is currently happening on the financial markets, seeing the US stocks edged upwards on Monday, led by the Dow Jones Industrial Average. Of course, this was following USB's deal to buy smaller rival, that is Credit Suisse, in a bid to avoid further market-shaking turmoil in the global banking system. Now, the market will need to digest the M&A from the weekend and then await the results of the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation auctions to see whether it agrees that contagion is actually contained, according to the US Market Intelligence team at JP Morgan in a note to the clients. Now, checking in with the indices, around 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time yesterday on the US side, the S&P 500 added at least 0.8%, and the Dow Jones Industrial Average gained at least 1% or close to at least 300 points, and the bank stocks, of course, rebounded and contributed mainly to the Dow Jones, where there are many financial institutions listed in there, and the technology-heavy Nasdaq edged up 0.3%. Bond yields on the other side also gained, and the yield of the 10-year Treasury note moved up to 3.47% on Monday. And that's it, my friend. Thank you so much for tuning in. Keep your hands and fingers crossed. The US global financial crisis is still on, and we are still monitoring very closely what could be the ripple effects on our markets worldwide, but also here in East Africa, locally here in Uganda as well. But you need information as per, of course, the requirements for being a trader in the financial markets, and the only spot where you can find information that is authentic and in real time is Smart24 TV. And we say we drive your business. Remember, this show is proudly brought to you by Altex East Africa, and with Altex we are saying you can buy bonds without hustling. All you need to do is grab your phone, no need for internet, and dial *292# to experience the magic. That's it, my friends. See you tomorrow. Have a very wonderful day. Bye for now.